There was a morning when I woke up and didn't want to pray anymore, not because I forgot, not because I was lazy, but because I believed God wasn't there anymore. I had been pleading with Him for nights, crying in silence, begging for His hand to reach into my life. But the only response I heard was a long, heavy silence. And I wondered, why keep praying if no one is listening? For years, morning prayer had been the way I started my day. I believed it was a sacred moment where I gave God my worries and received His peace in return. But that day, my heart felt completely empty. I stared at the ceiling, my eyes welling up with tears, and I whispered, God, if you're really here, I need to know. I need a sign, just something to keep me from giving up. I didn't know what would come after that prayer, but something did. It wasn't a flash of light from the sky. It wasn't a loud voice booming through the room. It was something else. Something small, but it changed everything. If you've ever felt like you're praying into a void, if you've ever believed you're not good enough for God to hear you, I want to invite you to stay with me, because I'm going to tell you exactly what happened after that moment and why I now start my day with a gratitude prayer that often brings me to tears. I still remember the first time I truly felt the love of God. It didn't happen in a big church service. It wasn't during an inspiring sermon. It was during an ordinary morning. The sun was shining through the window. There were no bells, no background music, just me, an old wooden chair, and a quiet prayer whispered from the heart. I wasn't expecting anything grand. I simply said, thank you. Thank you for letting me live. Thank you that my heart is still beating. Thank you that I can still breathe in a chaotic world. And in that moment, I didn't just speak words of gratitude. I felt heard. I felt a peace wash over me. Gentle like morning mist, yet stronger than any comfort I had ever known. It wasn't reason that convinced me. It was presence. A presence I couldn't see but could feel more real than anything I had ever touched. From that day on, morning prayer wasn't a routine anymore. It became my lifeline. It was how I chose to start my day, grounded in the presence of a God who never changes. I started writing down the things God had done for me in a small notebook. Every day I added a line of thanks. It became my personal daily devotional, a journey from gratitude to trust, from doubt to hope. I no longer prayed out of fear that God might leave. I prayed because I didn't want to leave Him. Some days I only wrote a few words. Thank you for this morning. Thank you that my child is safe. Thank you for this warm cup of tea. These small moments became seeds of faith. And over time, I began to look back and realize something. Every quiet word I had ever spoken, every dream I had ever surrendered, God had heard them all. He didn't always answer in the way I expected, but He had never left me. That's the truth I lived. That's the foundation of every prayer I've prayed since. And then just when I thought my faith was strong, just when I believed nothing could shake the love I had for Him, a storm came, an event I never thought would happen, and it changed everything. It all started with a phone call in the middle of the night. I woke up to the sound of the phone ringing, pounding against my chest. I had a feeling something wasn't right, and I was right. Someone I loved had passed away. No warning, no final hug, no last words to hold on to. In that moment, the world went silent, and so did I. I still got up the next morning. But morning prayer no longer felt like a connection. It became something I feared. Every time I tried to pray, I saw their face. I heard the sound of my own crying echoing in the quiet room. I asked God, why now? Why this person? Why my child? And there was no answer. I began to fear mornings because every time I tried to start my day, I had to face the reality of what I had lost. I opened my Bible and felt nothing. I repeated prayers without tears. I moved through each day like a shadow. I smiled, I worked. But inside I was screaming. I wore the mask of peace while my soul was shattering piece by piece. I started to believe God had left me, and I blamed myself. Maybe I hadn't prayed enough. Maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe I wasn't worthy of being loved anymore. I fell into a darkness that went deeper than grief. It was a place where God's promises felt distant, where the verse, God is with me, became nothing more than a line of empty words. I knew I was battling fear, but I didn't want to admit it. I was afraid to say out loud that I was losing my faith. I was afraid of what people would think if they knew I wasn't strong. I was afraid of what I might discover if I looked too closely at myself. Fear crept into my sleep, into the quiet moments. I wasn't just grieving someone I lost, I was losing myself, losing direction, losing my anchor, losing the light. Anxiety was never something I thought I would have to face, but it clung to me like a shadow. There were days I couldn't get out of bed, days I smiled with my lips while shaking on the inside. I kept trying to say my daily prayer, but my heart was empty. I listened to sermons, I read books, I went to small group, but nothing reached the part of me that was truly hurting. I used to believe strength came from consistent prayer, but now I didn't even have the strength to pray. I had no words left. I was used to saying trust God when everything was fine, but now I didn't know what to trust anymore. I felt like a broken jar, the pieces of my soul scattered on the ground with no shape, no meaning, no. If someone had asked me, "Do you still believe God is there?" I wouldn't have known what to say, because honestly, I didn't know anymore. I used to believe that as long as I was faithful, God would always be present. But I was wrong. Not because He isn't faithful, but because I never truly understood what faithfulness meant. I remember the night I collapsed on the floor. There were no prayers left in my mind. I could only whisper 2 words, "Why?" There was no response, no comfort. Just the sound of my heartbeat racing and the crushing feeling of being abandoned. That moment didn't just make me question God, it made me question my own worth. If He loved me, why was I hurting like this? If He saw me, why wasn't He doing anything? I had once used God's promises to encourage others. I used to tell my friends that trusting God was always the right choice no matter the circumstances, but now I couldn't believe it myself. I felt small and helpless, stripped bare before a God who suddenly seemed so far away. There were moments when I thought about giving up completely, not just my faith, but my entire existence. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I've been to that place. The place where light doesn't reach, where prayers echo into silence, where I truly believed I would never make it out. I remember sitting in my car, parked on the side of the road, rain pouring down. I screamed inside my heart, "God, if you're there, show me. I can't take this anymore. I'm falling apart. I need you. But if you stay silent, I'll stop looking." My heart wasn't just cracked at that point. It was a wasteland. And I waited for some kind of miracle, a dream, a voice, something supernatural. But nothing came. I turned away. I gave up, at least in my mind. I stopped reading my Bible. I stopped praying in the morning. I let go of morning prayer. And I thought if God really loved me, then He would have to come find me. But it was right there in my surrender that something began to shift. It wasn't a dramatic event. It wasn't lightning from the sky. It was something small, a stranger's look on the street, a phrase on the radio that caught me off guard, a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. And through all those little moments that seemed like nothing, I began to feel something I couldn't explain. That I had never truly been abandoned. That He had been there all along, in the stillness, in the waiting, in the quiet kind of faithfulness that never left. God didn't chase me with thunder. He waited for me in the storm. And when I had nothing left to offer, He started to heal what I couldn't even name. It wasn't a dazzling miracle. It was silent healing. It was strength born out of weakness. It was faith rebuilt, not by reason, but by presence. And I began to understand. Faithfulness is not about what you feel. It's about choosing to trust, even when you see nothing at all. I can't tell you the exact moment when things started to change. There was no clear turning point, no specific date on a calendar. But I remember the feeling. It was like sitting in a dark room for hours and suddenly noticing a thin line of light slipping through a crack in the door. No one opened it. The light just crept in, gently, but enough to let you know morning still existed outside. The rebirth of my soul began with moments just like that. A friend sent me a Bible verse out of the blue. They didn't say why, But that verse landed in the exact place where I was breaking. I read it over and over again. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something stir inside me. Maybe not faith yet, maybe just hope. But it was something I had lost for a long time. The next day, I sat down with my old notebook, the one where I used to write down gratitude every morning. I didn't plan to write anything, but my hand moved on its own and wrote, "Thank you that I'm still here today." I stared at those words for a long time, and then the tears came, not tears of grief, but of release, as if I had just passed through something heavy that no one else could see. From that moment on, I stopped forcing myself to pray the way I used to. I stopped trying to manufacture faith. I did only one thing. I allowed myself to be silent in God's presence. I didn't speak. I didn't ask. I just sat. And in that stillness, something inside me began to heal. I remember one morning I was sitting on the front porch. The sky was gray. A soft breeze passed by and I heard a bird singing. There was nothing magical about it, but in that moment I felt life again. I realized the Holy Spirit isn't always about overwhelming emotion. Sometimes it's just a presence, gentle as a breath, warm like the first light of day, and I whispered, "I'm here." If you're still near, stay close like this. I started again with simple daily prayers. Just a few words, but every time I spoke them, I felt like I was drawing a little closer to God. I didn't need to be strong. I didn't need to prove anything. I just needed to be present. And He would meet me there. The pain was still there. But I wasn't alone anymore. I started to remember the promises God had once spoken. I opened pages of Scripture I hadn't touched in months. And I read slowly, not to study, but to breathe, to remind myself that even when my faith was fragile, His faithfulness never changed. That's when I realized you don't have to be steady to believe. You just need the courage to open your heart one more time. Since that moment, nothing changed overnight. My life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still hard days. There were still moments I felt weak. But I was different. I no longer ran from my weakness. I began to embrace it as part of my journey of growing with God. I started again little by little. Early in the morning when the alarm rang, I didn't stay in bed for another 10 minutes, exhausted. I sat up slowly, placed my feet on the floor, and instead of reaching for my phone, I gently closed my eyes. I inhaled, exhaled, and began the day with a simple morning prayer. Lord, today I just want to be a little closer to you. I returned to my gratitude journal, but this time not to write something out of obligation. I wrote to live what I wrote. Each line was a quiet sign that I was coming back to life, a warm cup of water, a soft ray of sunlight, a surprise call from an old friend. I wrote them all down. I didn't leave anything out because I realized that what I once thought were small moments were actually clear evidence that God's grace was still working. Every single day, I returned to reading the Bible in a new way. No more rushing. No more rigid plans. Just one verse at a time. And I would live with that verse all day long, like a personal daily devotional written just for my soul. Each time I read, I felt like God was speaking, not with force, not with fear, just with love. Quiet, steady, gentle. One day I read a verse I had seen many times before. My strength is made perfect in weakness. I had read that line countless times, but that day I finally understood strength is not about never falling. It's the courage to rise again after being shattered. It's the faith to believe in a new day, even if yesterday felt like hell. To overcome isn't about being hard. It's about trusting with a heart soft as water. The Holy Spirit began teaching me to slow down, to listen before reacting, to pray not to change my circumstances, but to change the way I walked through them. I stopped chasing dramatic miracles. I started recognizing the miracle in every breath, every step, every quiet hug from someone I loved, every moment I chose not to give up. And that's when I knew I was really coming back to life, not going back to who I was, but becoming someone stronger, someone who loves God more, someone who knows herself more, and most of all, someone who understands that when you have nothing left but God, you still have everything. When I look back on the journey, the thing that surprised me most is not that I made it through. It's how I made it through, not by human strength or willpower, but by the quiet faithfulness of God. I used to think that faith was something I had to hold on to with all my might. But real faith, I've learned, is letting go and allowing Him to hold me instead. There's a truth I want you to carry with you, not just this morning, but in every moment you live. Every pain you've been through is not wasted. Every tear you've ever hidden. Every morning you woke up with a broken heart. Every prayer you thought disappeared into the silence. They were all seen, all received. And right now they are being woven into something beautiful that you just can't see yet. God's promises are not poetic lines in a book. They are life. They are the anchor that holds your soul in the middle of the storm. Not every promise comes to pass right away. But His faithfulness has never been late, even when you don't feel it, even when you doubt, even when you walk away. The greatest lesson I've learned didn't come when I was strong. It came when I completely broke down. It was there that I realized my weakness doesn't drive God away. In fact, it's where He draws closest. He doesn't wait for you to be perfect. He just waits for you to be honest. Honest about the pain. Honest about the fear. Honest about the questions that don't have answers. Trusting God doesn't mean you understand everything. It just means you believe He knows what you don't. You believe He's guiding you even when the path isn't clear. You believe that in everything that happens, even the painful parts, there is a loving hand quietly at work on your behalf. That's why I still pray every morning, not because I need something from Him, but because I need to begin my day grounded in what's true, that I'm not alone, that I'm loved, that my life has purpose, that everything I do, even the smallest act, is part of a bigger picture God is painting. And the same is true for you. You don't have to do something extraordinary to be loved. You just have to be here, honest, open, and willing to let God write the next chapter of your story. Because the truth is, starting your day with faith doesn't make everything easier, but it makes you stronger for whatever lies ahead. Lord, this morning I'm not asking for anything big. I just want to begin this day with You, in stillness, in presence, in unchanging love. I know there were times I drifted from You, mornings when I woke up with a heavy heart and didn't feel like praying at all. But You were still there, not rushing me, not condemning me, just waiting for me to come back. And today I'm here, not perfect, not strong, but honest. God, thank You for never letting go of me, even when I wanted to let go of myself. Thank You that Your faithfulness is greater than my doubts, that Your mercy is new every morning. No matter how many times I fall, You are always reaching for me again. Give me the courage to face today. Give me strength where I feel weak. Give me light where I walk through shadows. And more than anything, remind me that I am not alone, that every breath I take matters, that You are holding my hand one step at a time. Lord, I'm not asking for an easy path. I'm asking for a faith strong enough to keep walking even when I can't see the way ahead. Remind me that healing doesn't always happen in a single moment. Sometimes it happens day by day, choice by choice, prayer by prayer. Each time I offer up a gratitude prayer from deep within me, I am returning to life. And if today I feel weak again, remind me that true strength comes from You, not because I deserve it, but because You love me without condition. Use this morning to make my heart new, so I can love more fully, trust more deeply, and live with everything I am, because I know that starting my day with You is how I find my way back to who I really am. Do you remember what I said at the very beginning, that there was a morning when I didn't want to pray anymore? I sat there staring at the ceiling and whispered in despair, God, if You're still here, give me a sign. Now I know the sign was never in flashing lights or sudden miracles. It was in the silence I once feared. Because in that silence, God never left me. He was waiting. patient, quiet, faithful. And today I no longer begin my day with a morning prayer out of habit. I begin it with gratitude because I have lived, I have broken, I have been healed, and I still believe. And that is enough.